Hello and welcome everyone to the Daily Night. And this is your host, Brian Smith, and I'm also the publisher at Inside the Nights on Fan Nation, powered by Sports Illustrated. And today's episode is something that I've been talking about for a very long time. As you lose games, you will lose recruits. Today is an overview of the state of Florida and the recruiting situations, but it's really about one specific entity, and that is teams that are losing players while other teams are gaining them. The state of Florida is not doing very well on the gridiron, and it's costing them recruits from the high school level, and it is going to cost them long term as well. You just can't lose games like they are. With that, I'm going to start off with the Florida Gators. Then I'm going to go Florida State, Miami, and UCF. Talk about each of those programs. Florida is just in disarray. Some of the things that Dan Mullen has said probably have hurt him. The way he commented after the loss to Kentucky with a member of the media who questioned how they coached, and he was just very, very aloof and like, well, look at our numbers. He acted like it was a big deal, but he didn't credit the other part of the number, just yardage. He didn't talk about the failed opportunities in the red zone, etc. When you don't shoulder the blame right after a football game like that, it's going to haunt you. And then, of course, they didn't play well against LSU, and that's something that is beyond belief. And then all the stuff regarding the defensive coordinator, Todd Grantham. Is Florida in trouble with the recruiting class? Absolutely. A lot of trouble. You don't believe me? Here we go. Florida has this thing going on called decommitments. Nobody wants to play for Grantham. I don't know if Dan really can or can't fire him based on what the AD will allow him to do. I have no idea. But Grantham is going to have to go for them to get any defensive players. Because right now, they just lost Shamar James, one of the better players in their class, if not the best. He's a linebacker out of Mobile, Alabama. And they also have lost Julian Humphrey out of the Houston area. He's a big-time athlete, could have played safety, corner, receiver, whatever. They were projecting him to play corner for the University of Florida. You lose players like this that have offers from numerous programs and can help at critical positions like edge linebacker, that hybrid guy. He could be a Will, he could be a Mike. Shamar could have played about anything. I've seen him play a couple of times. Tremendous football player. You can't lose guys like that. He can play in space and still be a thumper in the middle. That's super rare. Those are the kinds of guys that Florida was trying to get, and they got him over Alabama originally. I bet you I know where he signs now. It's not going to be in Gainesville. They have to do something. This is unfortunate because college football needs a little bit more balance, but it is what it is. Additionally, CJ Hawkins, a kid I know pretty well, has decommitted from Florida as well. He is now with Stanford. That happened somewhat recently. That's a different kind of deal. Kids that want to go to Stanford, if they're committed to another institution, it's really more about whether or not Stanford finally gives the okay for the full scholarship to be extended. Their admittance process is ridiculous. Stanford's grades and they want the test score, their entrance exam and all of that stuff. It has papers you have to write. It's really ridiculous. Good for CJ for wanting to go there, but he's decided to go to the West Coast and play. I don't think that really has much to do with the troubles at Florida, but he just wants the Stanford education. I get that. It's unfortunate for the Gators because he's a great football player, but nonetheless. With that, a couple of quick projections. If Florida does not right the ship and they're at least competitive this weekend against Georgia, and I don't think they will be, this trend right here is going to continue. And what I mean by that is they're not going to fire Grantham if they didn't fire him after the LSU game. They're not, at least not till after the season. Recruits think now. They have very little long term. They'll have at least 2 more decommitments before the end of this year. Who knows who it will be, but nobody likes to be on a sinking ship, especially in a program where coaching change is inevitable. At least 2 more. And that's just by December. Who knows what happens depending on who they do or do not hire right after the season. So with that, good luck to them because it's going to be a really tough time. Florida has some really passionate fans, and they should. It's got a lot of tradition. But right now, there's just nothing to get excited about, and they're about to get pounded by Georgia. Maybe I'm wrong. It would be good for college football if that was a great game, but I see Georgia winning by 2 or 3 touchdowns. So we shall see. Now, here's the one that somewhat surprised me. Florida State is finally started to do something, finally. But at the same time, even after they beat North Carolina, a solid football team, they haven't, gotten over that hump. They just lost Trevion Williams, a defensive lineman out of Mississippi. Now, early this season, they lost to Jacksonville State. You cannot lose that game. I get it. But losing him, that's not a good sign. And they also recently lost an offensive lineman that was committed. And he's from Tennessee, but he was at IMG Academy. Both really good players. And maybe it's just a culmination of all the things from earlier this season, but I thought they were going to trend in the other direction. I was completely incorrect. Once they got those victories, I was kind of like, well, maybe they can right the ship. Maybe they can get some guys to come back on board. You never know. But at the same time, there's still more time to go in recruiting. Some of these kids can come back on board too. Nothing would be shocking. Florida State, I'm going to put them at that medium level. Like Florida's just, they're in disarray. They went from doing pretty well right before the season. They had a pretty good recruiting class. I thought they'd finish between 6 and 10, maybe 6 and 12. Pretty good recruiting class. Now, Florida, are they even going to finish in the top 20? I doubt it. Top 30? Maybe. Florida State, I have no idea because they're at least winning a little bit, and they're recruiting somewhat more out of the state of Florida than what the University of Florida is. Mississippi kids, Georgia kids, Alabama kids. It's a little more high risk, but their staff is familiar because they're from the Memphis staff, a lot of those guys. So that area, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, they're familiar with it. They're going to hit the Atlanta area, obviously. And as long as Travis Hunter's in the class, that gives you a lot of cachet. I still have some hope for Florida State's class, but I need to see them finish on the field. And what I mean by that is if you lose a game, and I'm sure they're probably going to lose at least one more. They play Florida. One of them's got to lose. Do you lose 31-24 or do you lose 34-10? They can't have any game where they get beat badly and no more "are you kidding me" moments. You can't lose any game that is definitively one that you have the higher level of talent. Florida State's, let's just look at Florida State's schedule. They're such a difficult team to understand because they've won 3 in a row. Did I see that coming? I wasn't sure they were going to win 3 games this year. So I don't know. They've got a tough stretch now. Let's see what they can do. If you look at it realistically, now they just beat UMass. Okay, it's not a very good team. 159-3. Florida State goes to Clemson. I don't see them beating Clemson. Their defense is really good. But then they've got NC State at home. NC State just lost that 1-point game to Miami. That's a tough loss. They have a good football team, really good quarterbacks going to play in the NFL named Leary. Then they host Miami. If they can somehow come out of that 2 out of 3, then they got some hope. But if they go 1-2 or 0-3, then Florida State's going to fall off the cliff as well. And then right after that, they got BC on the road and Florida on the road. Those are 5 games they can all lose. They can lose any of those 5. Do I think they're going to win at Florida? That would be the least likely, in my opinion. It's a rivalry game. Mullen always does well against them for whatever reason. And I just don't think they have the depth. Once you get to the end of the year, depth is really important. That's why recruiting in general is important. But again, they have at Clemson, host NC State, host Miami, go to BC. It's going to be cold. Those Florida kids, South Georgia kids aren't going to like it. That game's on the 20th of November. That is not a good date for Florida State to go to Boston. It is not. And then they play Florida down in the swamp. I'm going to guess they're going to go 2-3. They're going to get 2 wins out of that somehow. Which ones, I have no idea, but that's not going to get them in a bowl game. Will it be more attrition, or are they going to be able to sell, hey, we're still building this thing? It's debatable. I think, again, I've said it many times. I like Norvell. I think he seems like a good guy. I hope he does well there. But I really don't know much about the program's direction because they had so many holes to fill when they came in. Is he going to get enough? He's really going to have to depend on the transfer portal again because they were bringing in some high school kids for O-line and whatnot, but they cannot completely overhaul that O-line with just high school kids. They're going to need a JUCO or a transfer or something to get more stability and more depth. That's the first thing they need is O-line needs to be fixed. It's gotten better, though, a lot better. They've got some good young running backs. Got some good quarterbacks. They got a quarterback coming in. They're in good shape there. They have to be able to solidify the trenches, and really on both sides. D-line needs more talent too. That's why I brought up the kid from Mississippi leaving. That's not a good sign. They need 2, if not 3 more D linemen, in my opinion, because they need guys to come in and make an impact. And right now, they're just mediocre on defense, and they try to grind you out with the run-pass option game. That can only work for so long. Against Clemson, I'm not looking at that game in a positive light. Clemson eats teams alive that are not multiple, meaning run and pass. Clemson's front is the real deal. If you cannot throw the ball consistently, good luck. So that could be a very important game for them. Moving on to Miami, and this team, as I've said 100 times, you don't know what you're going to get. I thought they would be in a very, very close game against NC State, and I picked NC State by like a field goal or something. Miami won by 1. It's typical, but they don't normally finish games. Hats off to Lashley, the offensive coordinator. Critical play at midfield. Instead of just running the ball and punting, he gave it to Van Dyke and said, go make a play. Go make a play. And he threw a dart down the middle, and it was perfect. That play is what Miami should be and has been 20-plus years ago. But now, can they rebuild some of that? I don't know. All the things that I'm hearing from alumni, et cetera, is that the president of the university absolutely doesn't like sports. Not just football, sports. That doesn't work. And obviously, the head coach is still probably going to get fired. Who knows what's going to happen? Traquan Fagan's the star. They got out of Alabama. He decommitted. Then he immediately decided to go to Alabama. That's where a lot of people thought he was going anyway. That's not good. But they also have other problems. There are other kids in that class that are rumored to kind of be looking around hard. Do you blame them? Again, they won against NC State, but just some of the kids that I think that they're in trouble with. I can't say that it doesn't start at the top. Kamari Rogers was committed to LSU at one point. He's a Mississippi kid. Great corner. Could have the highest upside of any corner in the country because he's really thin, has a chance to add weight and all that, but he's twitchy, has great ball skills, and he can accelerate. If they lose him, and I have no idea, but the Mississippi schools in particular are really after him, that is going to be a domino effect for the Hurricanes. You can't lose your centerpiece, especially after Traquan decided to bolt. And who's going to jump on board with this? Right now, they have 8 commitments, none of which are from South Florida. 0. The University of Miami. Sitting around all that talent. No commitments from South Florida. So I go into segment 2, speaking to that. When was the last time Miami didn't have a commitment from South Florida at this juncture of the year? I followed recruiting since about 1990, 1991. When was the last time? In my lifetime, it's been never. Not once. How horrendous is Manny Diaz as a recruiter now? Because he has alienated in some capacity, it's pretty obvious to me, the coaches in South Florida. Most of those guys have some kind of tie to the University of Miami because they played there, or their brother played there, or their buddy played there. Some kind of tie. Even if they were a Florida State fan, they would respect Miami. They would respect Miami. But he has 0 commitments. That tells me the high school coaches are telling kids, no, don't go there. That's what it tells me. It also tells me that unless something really drastic changes, and this has nothing to do with Diaz and his staff, way up above, these guys aren't going to be lured back in to want to send their kids there. That's a problem. If you look at their commitment list, what are they going to do if Diaz goes? How many of these guys are going to keep? How many guys are going to go? Well, that all depends on the following question that I have no answer to either, and that is who in the world would want the Miami job and who would they even go after? Their recruiting class is going to be based on that premise. Can we find a way to get a big-time coach? Who is it going to be? Who are we going to go after? Is the lead into that? And then can we get a big-time coach? Big time is subjective, I will grant you. But football is a very random sport in the sense that every now and then you just fall into it timing wise. Alabama did with Nick Saban. The reason they're good now is they got bad at the right time, as goofy as that sounds. They're 1 year different after or before. Saban's not available. Nick Saban's never a part of the Crimson Tide. It's all about timing. Who can go to Miami and wants to go to Miami and resurrect that program? Is it anybody that's really going to do a good job of not only coaching, but also associating with their alumni, meaning not just the people that go to school there, but their football alumni? Because those two entities are not very much alike. And then finally, and most importantly, is all of that under the same umbrella and is happy with the president. What I'm hearing, it's not. I don't know who the president is, don't even know the name, but multiple people have told me, some of which are alumni. Doesn't care. That's not good. I think Miami's class will be lucky to finish in the top 50. And quite frankly, it's ranked number 60 right now on 24/7. That's not a good sign. But if they finish in the top 50, they'd be ahead of the curve. That's how bad the Miami football program has fallen. It's absolutely amazing. Lastly, UCF, but they are by far the highest on the board in what's been going on here in the last, say, 2 to 3 weeks officially, but it's been a little longer. I've hinted at it a few times on my site, Inside the Knights. Jordan McDonald jumped on the ship. He's a commitment out of Atlanta. And they also got the twins, Jakari and Damari Henderson from Sanford Seminole High School. They actually just selected UCF over Miami. It's like, why wouldn't you? It's not even close right now. And then finally with that, they're sitting at 15 commitments. They can kind of slow it down and be very selective until the transfer portal opens up. So hopefully I can have something going on with a little more information on 1 or 2 kids coming up. That it's, with the season winding down, it's hard to say when kids are going to pop now. I kind of knew about those guys, but it's difficult anyway beyond that. So that's going to wrap it up, but something to think about as you go into this last little stretch before we get into November. Recruiting is really going to heat up over the next 2 or 3 weeks. And then the 15th of December, so we're just 8 weeks away, a little under National Signing Day. So football is getting very, very close to its big recruiting day. About 75-80% of the kids will sign then, and then the rest of them will sign on the first Wednesday in February. I'm Brian Smith. Everybody have a great day.